Welcome back, Food FAQer. How are you? Today, what are we doing, Eric?
Bread.
Which is,
We're making bread.
yeah, and I like considering all the stuff we've been doing, this feels kind of off topic, but it's not
It is.
because it is cold. Even here, it's been cold for weeks and there's no better time to bake bread.
You guys have had like a nice winter down there this year.
It's actually really been like, it's almost inconvenient because I never know like what to wear and it's kind of a pain in my butt. But baking bread doesn't seem like a bad idea, even for Floridians. You know, it's funny that I used to make bread like in 2006 when we lived up north and I had my own sourdough and I don't know, I thought I was living in like what are those things called? A commune? I don't know.
Compound, like
Exactly. Like one of those people. I even made my own butter there. So I stopped doing it. And then you got a bread maker for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sending me all these like hot, crusty shots. And I'm like, shit, I got jealous.
Yes. But this bread recipe, I only use my bread maker to knead it.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I only use a bread maker to knead it. And then I did actually cook it off in the oven, which I will say, I love a bread maker for its convenience. But when you do cook it off in an oven, it does taste better.
Right?
It does taste a lot better. I
think it has to do with how hot it gets and like the cast iron. There's just the steam. There's magic.
Right. I agree with you. So I like the bread maker, like I said, for something quick and I don't have time to tend to it.
Right.
But I'll be honest, even something like this where I did have to tend to it, it's not difficult. And the moment you get your hands into it, you're going to see it's easy and you can do it.
Thank you for saying that. Because every time I tell people I make bread, they're like, what the fuck, June Cleaver? And I'm like, no, it's not that hard. Honestly, it doesn't take a lot. And I mean, it can be as complicated as you want it to be because you can make your own sourdough and you can do all this processes, which is beautiful, right? But you can also just use commercial yeast. There's nothing wrong with commercial yeast. It is delicious. It works fast. And really, it's the most special thing you're going to need to make bread.
Right.
Because everything else, it's flour, salt, water,
yeast,
and thyme. Those are the 5 ingredients that you have for bread.
I agree with you.
There's ways to shut it down, right? You don't have to spend so much time either.
No. And these recipes don't have to spend time with. So let's get to this shit, Mariella. There's a
all right.
lot of stuff. By the way, happy belated birthday. I know I said happy birthday to you on your birthday.
Likewise. It's been so hectic and getting old and look at you.
Yes. Mariella and I are only 2 days apart.
I know. We're like sisters.
Except I was born in 81. She was born in 78. So, but 2 days apart on the calendar.
That is all a lie, but a lady never tells how old she is.
43. Anyways, so let's get this started.
All right. So this is, I think, the best tasting bread you can make with yeast that is called no-knead. And what does no-knead mean? It means you don't have to fuck with it too much.
That's right.
Literally, it's in a bowl. You add the shit together and you don't knead it, right? You just have to like zhuzh it. So this recipe, it only takes 3 1/3 cups of flour. You can use all purpose. Doesn't have to be fancy. 2 teaspoons of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of active dry yeast, and 1.5 cups of warm water. That's it, you guys. This is what makes the magic that is bread. This is why bread is magical.
Right.
Literally takes fucking 3 things. And look what happens, you guys. There's like the bread sniffing response is like nothing else.
Oh, it makes your house smell so good.
Oh my God. Even a delicious cut of braised meat, I get tired of. Bread, I never get tired of the scent of bread. It is fucking divine. So anyway, this is what you're going to do. You're going to get your yeast. You're going to put it in your warm water. I usually just use like the water that comes from the sink that's warmer because you don't want it too hot because it will kill your yeast because it's alive. I was telling my kids the other day, I was like, oh, check it out. We're going to make bread together. And then I'm like, you see this? This is alive. And this is like what creates the bubbles. It eats it and then it makes gas. And my kids were like, this is fucking gross. And this is good to make with your kids too, by the way. This is the most kid friendly you could get. So anyway, you combine the water and the yeast and you set it aside and then you mix the dry, which is really just flour and salt. And then once you see that your yeast is dissolved or a little bit foamy on top, you put it into the dry ingredients. And then you just zhuzh it until it absorbs water. And that's how hard it is. You can add shit. Like the other day I made it with cheese, shredded cheese. Oh my God. Don't sleep on that. Make sure you add a thick crust of cheese on top of the bread too. and then you're golden. I do a slower method. I cover it and I leave it for 6 hours on the counter until it doubles, and then I put it in the fridge overnight. Bake it the next day in a nice hot oven in the cast iron pot.
I don't do that.
You don't do that because you have a machine.
Well, but again, so what I did, it was the same recipe. So mine was 1.5 cups of warm water, 3 cups of flour, a little bit of salt, and a little packet of instant dry yeast, which, by the way, that little pack is is 2 teaspoons.
Yeah, that's why you used instant. I didn't use instant. I used active.
Oh, no. So I want the quick. I use quick.
Talk about that.
Yes. So basically you're not going to have to proof it as long as Mariella did. So what I did is I put it in my machine just so it can mix it all together. And then when it was done kneading, mine just proof for 2 hours.
Oh,
that's it. And it already doubled in size.
Nice.
And then what I did is I dumped it out on a very clean surface, floured the surface, dump it out. And I did have to add a little bit more flour in there to knead it, because I did have to just not really knead it, but the consistency was a little loose. So I had to get it back to something a little more like bread-like. And with mine was the same thing. I took a block of aged cheddar and I roughly chopped it up like really finely, and I folded it in. So
good.
I had the dough out, put cheese on top, fold it, put cheese on top again, fold it. And so I did 4 folds, put it in my cast iron pot.
Yeah.
I lined it with parchment, put it in the cast iron pot. I did an egg wash on top, put cheese on top of the bread, put it in a 450 oven for 35 minutes, and then took the lid off and kept it in for 10 more minutes. Amazing.
The best. That little cheddar crust. Oh. Man, that was like my favorite part, because it's like that frico, like nice and, like that Italian, they call it frico.
Yeah. Oh, I was like peeling off the cheddar crust.
I think I'm going to have a piece after that, and I just want cheddar crust in my mouth. It's so good. So that's bread, you guys. It could be that easy.
I made a sandwich out of mine too. Like, that's how good it was. Like, I made a sandwich. It was so good. The next day, had some with dinner. I mean, who the fuck am I kidding? Like, the whole loaf was gone in like 2.5 days. So
that's good. Because that's the other thing. They only last 3 days out.
Okay. So that is the other thing. When you make fresh bread, it's not like bread you buy in the grocery store. It's only going to last a couple days. And as a matter of fact, by day number 2, I was having to when you cut it, I was putting it in the microwave to make it a little soft. But that's also a good thing, because you have to think to yourself, what the fuck is going in there to keep it soft for like a week and a half?
That's the best thing.
Right.
And you can freeze your bread after you bake it. I've done that, and it works just fine. It works better if you freeze it sliced. So much easier for yourself than just like the boule.
I don't like sliced bread.
Well, Eric, if you're going to get your boule and freeze it, you have to fucking slice it. Otherwise, you know what a pain in the ass is? Or you have to use the whole loaf.
Right. No, I mean, like, I wouldn't slice like a frozen loaf. I'm just saying bread is tastier when you rip it apart.
Okay. All right. Well,
what do you know? You know what? Like, ask a French person eating a baguette. They don't cut it. It's ripped.
Okay.
And there's a reason for that. No. Don't give me that shit.
I don't think it tastes better.
No, it does. Mariela, I'm telling you, as a whole different, you know what? You keep your subpar cut bread over there, and I will enjoy ripped cheese bread.
Shut up. Listen, I want to make sandwich bread, I haven't done that in a very long time.
That's really good in the bread maker.
Yeah,
because
I bet
it forms perfectly like a sandwich bread.
Yeah, I bet it is, because that's probably what they do like in commercial factories, They have some kind of machine that looks like that, but bigger,
Yeah.
Yum. But like, honestly, there's so much to fresh bread that you can enjoy, and everybody in your house is going to enjoy it. I know it sounds like it's going to be complicated, but listen, you just heard us talking about it. You throw something in a bowl and then you mix it, and that's it. You cook it. It's beautiful. And you don't need a bread maker.
No, you don't.
You can proof fast. What is that yeast called? I can't remember.
It's like instant yeast.
Instant yeast works in half the time of regular yeast, or probably even less. So you can have bread like on a Saturday. You can just hook yourself up and do it.
I think the purpose of this podcast, I know it's kind of not what we've been doing lately or period, but I think people, because it's like totally different. It's a little bit more boring. It's a little more boring podcast, but I think it's because, at least for me, making bread outside of a bread maker it looked challenging, and it looked like something I could not do. And then when I did it this weekend, this is the first time I've actually ever made bread outside of a bread maker.
Nice.
And when I did it this weekend and I saw how easy it was and how great it came out. So you're right. You do not need a bread maker for this. You just have a bowl and a spoon and you can do this. Don't be afraid to do it. And I think the thing is, when you listen to us on this Saturday, you'll hear more technique on how to make the bread better, or what happens like when I had like a loose dough.
This loose dough sounds gross.
It was gross. It was disgusting. And so, but try it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Nothing.
Agreed.
And bread making ingredients are so fucking cheap. So
absolutely.
What's the worst? It's literally flour, water, salt, yeast. Most of us have everything in our home. You may just need to buy yeast.
Exactly. Which is cheap,
like
by the way.
Literally $2.
Yeah. It's super inexpensive. So yeah. This Saturday's episode, like Eric was saying, we're definitely going to go into all the things, different flours, timing. Maybe we can touch on sourdough. I don't know. We haven't discussed that yet. We'll see.
That's a whole nother adventure.
Yeah. So how to troubleshoot. There's going to be a full intensive, like, what do we call this, Eric? Yeastology, Bread 101.
Yeastology sounds so fucking disgusting. Don't say my wet dough sounds bad. Okay, this is horrible.
Well,
how about bread making 101?
Yeastology. Right, so boring. Okay, bread making 101.
My apologies. Yeastology 101. I'm not thinking of like some whatever infection y'all got to deal with.
You always got to go there, huh?
Well, that's what it sounds like, and every listener is thinking the same thing.
You can have one too. Okay, it's not just us.
Horrible.
Okay, you guys. So this was our quick little recipe. Easiest thing you could possibly do with bread as a beginner. And don't forget to listen in on Saturday because we have so much more on this topic and it's going to be super informative and sometimes maybe a dick joke, but we'll see. We don't know yet.
Yeah, that might be a dick joke.
We love you guys. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.